So, good morning. Thank you for joining us on our Ventura Pre-Tour, Pre-Broker Tour meeting. We have a special guest this morning, Matt LaVere, the mayor of Ventura, has been able to join us to talk a little bit about the state of the city and, of course, what's on everyone's mind is opening back up. And I also want to give special thanks to Lynn Kenton for inviting him and getting him to come visit with us. So let me look for you, Matt, so I can spotlight you. There you are. Okay. And I think you're unmuted, right, Matt?
I am. Can everybody hear me? Or can you hear me, Jana?
And you've got the quarantine beard as well. Awesome.
I do. I'm in this with everybody else.
Excellent. Excellent.
I appreciate Lynn for inviting me and for all of you for taking the time to come join me this morning. Obviously, this isn't the way I prefer to communicate. It's tough looking at 100 little boxes on a screen. But it is what it is for the time being, and we have to take advantage of whatever ways we have to still communicate with each other. I mean, it's been said, these are unprecedented times. I think this virus has impacted all of us professionally and personally in really unique ways. And we're all trying to make the best decisions we can for our personal health, for the health of the community. But really what it comes down to from my end is we also at the same time have to really focus on what our recovery is going to look like, especially our economic recovery. And I think a lot of us are anticipating some news, some guidance from the governor today. And the big issue, which I think a lot of us want to find out about, is just what are essential businesses, what businesses are going to be allowed to operate as we transition into stage 2, and how will they be allowed to operate. I fought early on, I think with many of you, to get the real estate industry deemed essential. It's tough in my position right now because the city doesn't have a public health department, so I don't have much authority when it comes to these public health orders. That largely lies with the governor and with Dr. Levin, who's our county public health officer. But what I can do is just try to help communicate, to strategize, and to do what I can behind the scenes. And we did a lot of that with the real estate industry. I think largely from my perspective, first and foremost, because I knew it could be done in a safe and socially responsible manner. And then 2, because our housing needs aren't going away. And the real estate industry is obviously critical in that engine, our housing engine. And we have to keep this industry going because people still need places to live. And so I am expecting a lot of really specific guidance, industry-specific guidance from the governor today as to what businesses he envisions being allowed to operate during stage 2. And what's really exciting to me is that even if these businesses aren't maybe in this beginning phase of stage 2, that there's an accelerated phase. And here in the county, the governor has laid out 6 metrics in terms of hospital and ICU capacity, inventory of PPEs, public health guidance, 6 metrics altogether. And here in the county, we're meeting them all. And so I think that Dr. Levin's going to be able to make certain findings, and these findings will be sent to Sacramento, and we'll be able to apply to get into this accelerated phase. And hopefully that will enable even more businesses to be deemed essential and to start operating during this stage 2. And so that's happening today. Stage 2 starts tomorrow. I think that's going to be the start of the recovery that we need to keep a focus on. But here in the city, what we're doing is we've started a recovery task force, and we had an economic development subcommittee meeting this week. And what I said there was, if there is ever a time that we as a city and as a city council need to be bold and innovative, it's now. I mean, our business community is going to need our support more than maybe they've ever needed it before. And so we have to really think outside the box. I can tell you a couple things we're thinking of. You might have seen it online. We're looking at closing down streets during certain days or hours to enable restaurants to spread out into the streets and allow more outdoor retail and restaurant capacity. Many of you who know the restaurant industry understand that they operate really on thin margins to begin with, and same with retail. And we have to, if they're being forced to go down to 75 or 50 or 25% occupancy, whatever the governor's guidance is we have to step in and maybe backfill and figure out ways they can expand their capacity in a safe manner. And so we're doing that. We're going to also be looking at ways we can really cut out the red tape. I know that's a common theme you hear from politicians all the time, but it's something that I've really tried to focus on during my term as mayor. We're in the process of doing 57 things to the city to cut that red tape, but we need to do it in an emergency fashion, in hyper speed right now. And so our staff has already presented us 3 or 4 examples of ways that they can remove bureaucratic roadblocks when it comes to signage, sign variances, conditional use permits. We want to help businesses get back and get moving and get opening and get succeeding as soon as possible. So I would anticipate that we are going to have a special city council meeting next week where we focus solely on our economic recovery. I would love to hear from all of you, whether it's real estate specific or any other kind of industry. I would love to hear how you think we as a city can help boost and aid that recovery. It's really the first and foremost thing on my mind right now, besides obviously the health of our community. And our numbers continue to stay really strong in Ventura, and it really has to do a lot with how well everybody, all of us, are complying with these stay-at-home orders. Ventura County has some of the lowest numbers in the state, and the city of Ventura has some of the lowest per capita numbers in the county. And so I'm just really happy and proud of how well our communities responded and kept the health of our community really at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Yeah.
So those are kind of my comments, and I'm obviously happy to take any questions people have.
Yeah, if you guys want to pop some questions in the chat room, that would be great. Matt, I appreciate you mentioning talking about closing some streets so restaurants would have some more space to spread out. My husband and I have talked about how thin the margin is of profit for a restaurant, and you can't stay open with 25 or 50% capacity. Are you thinking about downtown specifically, or what streets are up for those conversations?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The margins, restaurants can't operate at a 50% occupancy given the margins they have to deal with. And so we have to think about ways to expand that capacity, but obviously in a safe manner. And to me, outdoors is the obvious answer to expanding that capacity. We're first going to probably focus on Main Street, certain blocks of Main Street. We're going to have to do it and cautiously to see, because we have to think about the businesses beyond restaurants. There's obviously retails, there's salons, there's other businesses that we have to think about as well. And so we'll probably start with maybe evening hours or maybe just weekends and see how it goes, do a pilot project, see if people like it, see what the effects are. And then if we want to expand it even into more of a permanent thing, we're going to keep an open mind. But we want to start with a pilot project, Main Street. We're also going to maybe look at some other areas like South Seaward, Lower Seaward, about maybe doing it there. Maybe some of the side streets around Main Street, like Oak or Palm or Chestnut, and just kind of see what works, see what people like, see what the response is, and then see we also got to make sure that we can do it in a safe manner and there's not mobs, and because social distancing is going to be with us for the foreseeable future.
So another question I had for you is those beautiful new parking lots that are going in near the beach. When are we going to be able to use those more?
Which parking lots?
The ones like near the promenade that are being redone right now.
Oh, so beach parking lots. Just when are we going to be able to open those up?
Yeah, well, I've noticed, I'm seeing pictures on Facebook. They're getting recoated with asphalt and whatnot down by the promenade.
Yeah, we're actually, a lot of that has to do with the repairs we're doing down there because of damage caused by the king tide and the waves last year. So we're redoing the promenade to refit that and strengthen the structure of that. We're also going to do some basic public works maintenance down there. That work will be done in 3 to 4 weeks. The issue of when we're going to open up beach parking and restrooms, obviously, is largely dependent on the governor's orders. You saw what happened in Orange County with beaches being shut down when you don't follow the governor's guidance. And we're trying to avoid that because we want to keep our beaches and our parks open for recreation. And so we're waiting for guidance on the governor on when he'll allow beach areas to reopen parking and restrooms and whatnot.
Yeah, nice. There is a question here. Lynn is actually asking, has the city representatives interacted or gotten suggestions or feedback from restaurants and whether they feel like the street venue option is viable for them?
Of course, yeah, it's a good question. We've been working closely with Downtown Ventura Partners, which is the organization that is kind of the management / lobbying arm of all downtown businesses. Many of you know Kevin Clarisi. He's I've been running the Downtown Ventura Partners for 5 or 6, maybe more years now. He does an incredible job. And he's done a lot of outreach as to see what downtown businesses want. And there has been a widespread enthusiasm from the restaurants and the retail owners in downtown to try this out, to see how it works. But obviously, you know, we need to, as I said, we need to keep a lookout for all of the businesses downtown. And so that, you know, I've heard in the past that maybe sometimes salons have concerns with that because they're not looking for walk-up traffic, and they want to keep it easy for their long-term customers or long-time customers to be able to park right in front and walk in. So there's a lot of things we have to consider, but I think we have to try. I mean, we have to think outside the box. We have to try and do things now, and I'm excited to at least give it a chance.
And when you talk about cutting red tape, is there an example or two that you can think of that's going to be discussed at City Council?
Well, I think what the biggest way this is going to help local industry is through so many businesses that require permits or conditional use permits. And I think I'm thinking about is as businesses come out of this shutdown and need to reopen, there's going to be things they have to change within their business, maybe to meet new social distancing standards or ways they have to retool their interiors. And there's going to be a lot of people coming to City Hall, whether it's for permits or for guidance. And we want to make sure that the big thing that I think we need to do is, rather than force people to go through maybe something that would require a public hearing, or there's a process involved, which takes time, we want to get it to the point where our city staff can make it a ministerial function, where they can look at it, make a judgment call on the spot, and sign off on the spot. I mean, that could cut down, even if it's only 1 or 2 weeks, time is money when it comes to restarting our economy. And I want to make sure the city is as responsive and quick as possible when dealing with these businesses who want to reopen.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's actually a couple questions in here specifically about the beaches and about the Ventura beaches being closed versus Santa Barbara beaches. And one gal was up at the Rincon area last weekend and off Bates Road, and that parking lot was open. So I think it's a little confusing of what's open, what's not open, and what's determining that.
It is. I mean, Rincon just in itself is interesting because there's 2 lots of Rincon. There's the upper lot and there's the lower lot. And the lower lot's a state lot, and that's closed. And the upper lot is a Santa Barbara County lot, and that's open.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of confusion. What we try to do locally is that Ventura, the city of Ventura actually owns very little or controls very little of the beaches in Ventura. Most of those beaches are state beaches. If you're standing on the pier, if you look right, you're standing and looking at the pier towards the ocean. If you look to the right towards Surfers Point, that's city beach. Everything to the left, all the way down to essentially Marina Park, is all state beach, except for the first 10 yards or so by the lanes where there used to be a road. So there's a lot of confusion as to what city, what state, and we've been working really closely with state parks, with the governor's office, to make sure that we have joint and cooperative rules in place for Ventura beaches, whether they're state or city. And what we were told from the governor's office is that he's really promoting communities that have these active recreation. He calls them coastal recreation plans. And so that's what Ventura has in place. That's what the county has in place, Oxnard, Port Hueneme. And it basically says, you know, physical activity only. Get out, enjoy the beach, get some fresh air, get some vitamin D, but keep moving. That we can't yet have people lounging and making days of it. So that's what we were encouraged to do by the governor, and I think it's working out well so far.
So interestingly, one of the comments is talking about when they went for a bike ride near the beach, on the surface streets and on the sidewalks, it's actually more crowded now than normal because we're not spreading out. So is it possible that opening a parking lot could help with that congestion and keep us a little more spaced apart?
Yeah, I mean there's obviously pros and cons to all of these issues. The one concern with parking lots is that we're still trying to discourage, especially out of town folks, from coming up here and making a weekend of it or a day of it on our beach. You know, community to community transmission is how this virus spreads from a hotspot like LA to Ventura. So we're still, as best as possible, trying to encourage only local residents to use our local parks and beaches. And I get it, it's not perfect. I'd be the first person to admit it. I don't have a park very close to my house. I live by the hospitals. And so Arroyo Verde is kind of the closest park to me, and there's no parking there. And so this isn't working out well for everybody. It's not ideal, but we're trying to kind of find that balance to where we open up parks and beaches, because we were finding that everybody just walking on sidewalks in neighborhoods creates density. And so having our big parks and our beaches open allows us to spread out a little. But parking is the one issue. I think that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, the governor is going to ease some of the restrictions he has in place about beach parking and whatnot. And I would anticipate learning more shortly. But that's why we have the parking restrictions in place as we speak.
Sure, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. One last beach question. Is the beach that is across from the harbor state or city?
If it's the beach I'm thinking of, like Mother's Beach, that's state.
Along Spinnaker Drive.
I believe those, there's some city and there's some state in there. It's so confusing.
Okay.
But regardless, the same rules are in place.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I do see those parking lots are closed as well. And then one very kind comment here is the city in need of volunteers at all? And if so, for what types of projects?
Not right now. I think obviously as we keep moving forward, we're always looking for volunteers at our homeless shelter. That obviously got up and running and then COVID struck. But I know that's a city function. We're working with Mercy House to operate it, but it's an area where we can really use help of volunteers. Citywide, we're not looking at anything right now, but there's still so much unknown. I appreciate the response. I appreciate the openness. And as we kind of figure out in a more clear understanding of what our recovery is going to be, volunteers might be an essential part of that. So I would love to come back and let you know those opportunities.
Okay, great. And one question here is asking for updates with our hospitals, beds available, and masks needed. I just recently spoke to someone who was taking her mom to community, and it sounded like they only had one COVID patient.
Yeah, there's 23 patients in the county right now, spread across 8 hospitals. On average, it's about 3 per hospital. In Ventura, there's only 40 of us Venturans have tested positive throughout the pandemic. I don't know the current numbers, but I've heard there's several hospitals that only have 1 or maybe even no COVID positive patients, which is one of the reasons why we're in such a good position right now, is because there's no threat of a surge overwhelming our healthcare capacity. And so there's 23 people in the hospital. I believe 10 currently in ICU beds, and we have 100. I think it's 130 ICU beds throughout the county. So only 10 in use. That is really creates a good environment for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So back to businesses being essential. One of the questions is about dog groomers, pet groomers, or even mobile pet groomers. I think a lot of people's fur babies are looking pretty rough, and even just caring for them health-wise, they need to be trimmed and cleaned. And so what's the possibility for that?
Yeah, you're reading my mind. That's you saw my emails. I probably one out of every 3 emails I get relates to pet grooming. It just shows how much we love our fur babies. And like a lot of us, we could all use a haircut right now. And I just had my wife do mine last weekend. But so here's the latest update I got on grooming is that it's at the top of Dr. Levin's list. We have a weekly call on Wednesdays between all of the elected officials across the county and Dr. Levin and some other county officials. And we had a long talk about that yesterday. And it's he expects to receive some guidance from Governor Newsom tomorrow on pet grooming and what standards the state may put in place. If the state doesn't mention anything, then Dr. Levin and the county are prepared to act locally. He says it's a priority of his, the top of his list, something that he thinks can be done in a safe and responsible manner. And so I would anticipate news on groomers coming out in the next few days. And if the governor doesn't do something, I anticipate it would be part of Dr. Levin's next revised order, because it's beyond just the aesthetics. There's a health function to it. We need to look after our pets.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's definitely at the top of everyone's list, right next to access to the beach for sure. And one person said, going back to city functioning and cutting red tape and making things faster, is it at all possible you guys will have a COVID-19 counter, so to speak, at the city to be helping process things faster?
You know what? That's a great question. I'm going to scratch a note real quick. We did that with the Thomas Fire when we had to respond to the needs of our residents in the Thomas Fire. We created a separate table and room for the Thomas Fire rebuilders. And that is a very good point. I'm going to actually encourage that. It's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. Okay, let's see if we have any others in here. And I know Food Share has been asking for help, or has the city been aware of anything else that we can help in that manner as far as feeding people who are really short on funds?
Food Share is doing, God's work right now. It's amazing how many people they're feeding. They just had a contract with the county to expand it by $300,000 a month. They're having these pop-up food pantry distribution sites across the county. Ventura has theirs on Monday, and it will just break your heart, the amount of food insecurity right now countywide. There's times when they have to close down the pantry and there's still 100 people in line. And so I'm hoping this new infusion of money from the county will help that. It's going to do it several thousand more meals a week. And they're always looking for volunteers, both with time, with money, because the need is not going away anytime soon. And I went out to the pop-up pantry recently and saw what was going on down at the fairgrounds. And it's amazing the amount of people they're able to help right now. So if you have the ability to do it financially, I know they're always looking for that. Or even if it's just cans of food in your pantry that you can give up, I know they're always looking for donations and for volunteers.
Yeah, they definitely are always looking for canned foods, but I think I heard a statistic that for every dollar one of us could donate, they actually can get like $7 worth of spending out of it because of their connections of buying at a cheaper level than we would at the grocery store.
It's true.
So, and I do know they normally feed like 75,000 people a month. Do you have any idea what those numbers are currently?
I don't, countywide. I don't. No, I'm sorry.
Just curious if you had heard some numbers thrown around. And how about, this topic is that on everybody's mind too, the Ventura County Fair being canceled. How do you know how that was received, and is there any discussion to have on that?
I talked to Barbara Quaid on Tuesday, and she's the CEO of the fair. And obviously, this was not a decision they made lightly. I mean, that is their bread and butter. That's how they stay in business, is the money they make off the fair every August. And it was a tough decision to cancel it, I know. But just given the public health and the social distancing requirements in place now, it was a hard decision, but I think it was the right decision. It's just now we're not quite ready to have these events where there's tens of thousands of people in close proximity like that. And so they're looking to just come back to even stronger in 2021. I know that I think they might have thought about delaying the fair just with contracts and with the unknown, it wasn't going to make sense. So they're going to come back next year. And that was a tough one to see, because I know we all look forward to that every summer.
Yeah, and we can imagine there's plenty of local businesses that get to participate there as well. And I know there was a conversation about 4-H animals not being able to be sold at the fair.
Yeah, they're still going to try to come up with some kind of virtual auction for those kids, because I know they raise those pets for close to a year, and they put so much time and money and sweat equity into that.
Sure.
You'd hate for them to lose that opportunity. So I know they're still going to pursue some kind of auction to benefit those kids.
Yeah, that's great. And let's see. Oh, and Lynn is mentioning that Food Share asked for volunteers for gardening. So if you guys need to get out, then out in the fresh air, they can certainly use that. Okay, let's see if there's anything else that we need to. Oh, somebody asked, do you know what the current population of the city of Ventura is?
Geez, the last census population was about 110. I think we've obviously grown since then. And I'd guess right now it's between 115 and 120,000.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, great. Well, do you have any last thoughts that you feel like we need to hear?
No, I want to make sure, through all of this, I'm doing what I can to be open, to communicate, to be accessible. I think so much of the unknown is what's scary to people, and I'm trying to communicate everything I know. I'm trying to get out to the public. I do a nightly update on my Facebook page for those who want updates. But really, get in touch with me if there's ways that you think I can help, if there's information you need, if there's anything I can do just to be of service. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'll do what I can. And just thank you, everybody, for complying with these orders as hard as it is. I mean, the health of our community is so much stronger than other communities across the world, and I think we have a lot to be thankful for. And so thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I probably, a lot of the audience here doesn't know that back when we were not essential, I was one of the people that reached out to you to ask you to look into it, and you took action immediately. So I want our little community on here to know that you were instrumental in getting us to be essential business again. We definitely appreciate that.
Thank you, Jen. All right, have a good day, everybody.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. We really appreciate your time, and appreciate the hot seat that you're in, having to look out for all of us, and truly thank you for your service.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.